So before I bring Justin on, let me give him a proper introduction. So the Lexington-Bluegrass Association of Realtors, LBAR, welcomed Justin Landon as CEO in April of 2018. Prior to joining LBAR, Landon served as Vice President of Government Affairs for the San Antonio Board of Realtors. Before becoming a part of the Realtor family, Landon spent over 10 years working in the United States Congress. He is a graduate of the University of California, Santa Barbara, and grew up in a multi-generational Realtor family. Please join me in welcoming Justin to the show. Justin. Hey, buddy.
Good morning, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, man.
I appreciate the invitation. I am feeling slightly under backgrounded, though, looking at that beautiful background behind you. I've got a set of blinds back here, and that's about as good as I can do.
Hey, let's natural light in, man. I'm in a dark hole with some cool colored lights,
That's right. I'm gonna get some LED lighting in here before too long.
There you go. I would have thought, in this world, we probably needed more LED and more color, because we were all zooming it up and doing all this kind of stuff. Now it's good back into the real world, man. You're good.
Absolutely.
You don't need the LED. So, hey, well, before we get into the conversation, I love doing just a quick little rapid fire and letting people know who you are and seeing what you might be into. So you good with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. Here we go. What app on your phone could you not go without?
Yeah. So for me, it's definitely an app called Libby. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. I'm a big reader, and in fact, I read probably more than my budget would otherwise be able to sustain. So I use the Libby app, which allows me to connect to a lot of the libraries. Please don't tell anybody, but I still have active library cards in DC and San Antonio. So I frequently, borrow books from kind of all over the country if I can't find what I'm looking for. So.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's funny. I love the Libby app. I'm a big reader as well. And if you guys don't know what that is, he just explained it very well. But if you have a library card and you have it, you can actually enroll in this and download books. But it is interesting because you have to have, like, they only have so many copies they can lend out.
Right.
So even though it's digital, you can't, it's not like Audible or, the Kindle store or anything like that. You have to actually literally check the book out, and you have a few days to have it, right?
Like 2 to 3 weeks usually. And you can get audiobooks that way, digital copies of books. So I usually have an audiobook going and one that I'm reading. So I don't know. It's been great for me.
That's good, man. So what's kind of your favorite genre of book?
I read really widely. My current audiobook is Cast: The History of Our Discontent, which is actually the Kentucky Realtors book club choice this month. And then on my book that I'm reading I'm reading a book with my daughter. We're watching the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
She's read the series, so I'm kind of reading along to keep up. So I read all genres. But if it's a Sunday afternoon on the lake or something like that, give me a good science fiction book, and I'm happy.
There you go, man. Yeah, I'm a big reader. That's all good. Yeah, we watched the Shadow and Bone is it on Netflix? Is that what it's on? Yeah, that was pretty good. I think my wife's reading the books. So, yeah, it's a good story. All right, Justin, what was your first job?
Well, there's two answers to this question. The first job for which I was ever paid was selling shoes in college. So I was the top running shoe salesman at a running store in Santa Barbara, California. Did that for 4 years, but that was not the first time I really worked. It was just the first time I got paid. The first job I ever had was I was the guy that would drive out for my dad in high school, and I would go out and fill out the HUD repo forms for properties that he was going to list, and he had to provide those repo forms to the bank. So I'd go out and I'd fill out, is the condition of the house, just a general checklist of items, and I'd bring that home. And Dad was really churning the REOs back in the day.
Oh, yeah. They were big. They're not so big right now.
Yeah, not right now. We may see a slight uptick here coming up in
Yeah.
the future. But, at this point, unlike in the past, we could probably use a few REOs on the market right now, given how tight things are.
Well, that's absolutely true. Yeah, we could use the inventory. Bring it on. All right. Here's a good one. What's your hidden talent?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have many hidden talents. I will tell you the most surprising thing I can do, for those who have met me in person, is I actually do a pretty mean cartwheel. And if you spot me at a conference late at night, you may see it.
That's awesome. I've not seen it, man. I'll have to have you do that for me. That is one thing. Even as a kid, I could not do it. Like my legs would never go straight; they'd always bend. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
joke.
I'm not saying it's a super pretty cartwheel, but I can get vertical and I don't fall.
That's pretty good. Yeah, we actually just went to a trampoline park with the kids a couple of nights ago, and man, there was some kids on there just flipping. I did everything I could just to even not fall down on the trampoline. It's so bad. It's good. All right, more of a serious one, but what's one thing your mother or father taught you that just completely changed your life?
Yeah, there's definitely more than one thing, but for those who Adam kind of mentioned at the top, I'm third generation in the real estate business. My grandmother started a brokerage in the '60s. My dad, her son-in-law, took that brokerage over in the '90s. And I'm kind of the failure in the family because I've never had a license, but that's, we're not all perfect. But the one thing my dad told me that I really took to heart and I believe to this day is 90% of success in life is showing up every day on time.
Mm,
And although that is somewhat simplistic in its approach, I think it's really true. I think being present is something that hard work can't really overcome
mm,
not showing up.
yeah,
And so I've really taken that to heart. It's something I impress on my staff all the time. And I think in the real estate business is particularly true. You
yeah.
just have to make the time and be there.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely good. I've heard, I can't remember what coach or trainer said this, but on the show he said, he asked the question, have you ever bought something from a bad salesperson? And the answer was yes, we all have, and the reason why is because at least they were there. So even if you're present and you're on time and you're there, you can make sales. But then you add to it, being good at your job and getting good at it, it's even better. So I think they're right. Being on time and showing up, and really, my experience has been this: it's success comes in those small little moments. It doesn't come from these big, massive outward showing of wisdom and everything. It comes in those small, diligent steps. And I think showing up and being on time and being committed to your job is that's good advice. I mean, it's great.
Well, in these days in real estate too, at least I hear from a lot of folks out there is, answering your phone.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
one complaint I hear more than anything from both consumers and from other realtors is that, I can't get them on the phone. So
Yeah.
something to think about.
That's so true. And even today, we were talking about this. I think it was last week. Is if somebody is actually physically ringing your phone, that the chances are that person is really ready for something, because most people are not comfortable doing that anymore. The majority of people just shoot a text, shoot an email. But man, answer your phone, because nowadays that's like back in the day when email was good, right? It's like you've got mail, and it's like everybody's like, oh, I gotta check my mail. I got a new email, because it was always important. Someone took the time to write me a letter. Now not so much. Now we reverted back to the phone call. So that's
Yeah, and
good.
I'd like to apologize to everybody that I'm that guy that if you text me, I frequently just call you back. And I know that's a party foul and not something that you're supposed to do. But if I think I could solve it faster verbally, you're just gonna see my name pop up as a phone call. So apologies in advance.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's one of the things I kind of like that too, because I can communicate a lot better. And my assistant actually turned me on to Marco Polo, and I've never used it before. And I've just started using Marco Polo, and it allows you to send video messages back and forth, and it keeps the whole run. So it's like a text message, but you're not having this whole dialogue. They can listen to it immediately, like live with you, or respond later. So it's really kind of a blend of the two worlds. I don't know if you've ever used Marco Polo or not, but
I'm not familiar with Marco Polo as an app, but I but
yeah.
I do remember Jared James, the real estate coach, talking a lot about as a good piece of advice to respond with a video message, particularly at first contact, because that kind of creates that sense of connection that you don't get from a text message.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, and honestly, talking about technology, that's actually probably a perfect little segue here into my very first question for you, is just talking about basically the technology and the big tech that's entering into our industry. And, what kind of effects that might have on our business going forward. So can we talk about the big tech and kind of what that looks like going forward and for the real estate agents?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about big tech, we have to sort of define what we mean by it. I think from an agent's perspective, sometimes big tech feels like, the new CRM whiz bang, or, the new application that's going to empower them to be more efficient, or some new website that the brokerage is rolling out. And like generally when I'm talking about big tech, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, those are tools that make your life easier. And yes, technology has allowed us to streamline our business in a lot of ways. But when I talk about big tech, what I'm really talking about is multi-billion-dollar venture capital money that sees inefficiencies in the real estate economy. And the easiest example to look at is sort of the Redfin effect, which sort of came in, I don't know now, probably 15 years ago when Redfin first started to break in, and they felt like, hey, there's an opportunity to sort of have this digital first brokerage. And you saw the very famous, court case with NAR where,
Yeah.
MLS has tried to keep the data off the internet, and Redfin won that lawsuit. And now we have what we call virtual office websites, right? So to me, like that was sort of the first step of big tech coming in. And things really calmed down for like 10 years. I mean, yeah, we saw the portals prop up. You saw, Realtor.com once NAR sold it. You saw Zillow, Trulia, these other websites that have come in. But most of those started, relatively small and then grew because there was consumer demand for those places. Increasingly over the last really 5 years, we've really started to see massive VC money come into the industry. Brokerages like Compass and EXP have seen massive investment. And then you've seen companies like CoStar and Zillow kind of reinvest in the industry and start to buy up technologies that we have sort of seen as, part and parcel to our business. Things like Dotloop, which LBAR first rolled out to our members in kind of the late 20 or the mid 2010s. And then Zillow bought, several years after that, seeing it as something to add to their portfolio. Obviously, Zillow bought Showing Time. But as we look at those two companies, I think there's a lot of anxiety about Zillow and not nearly enough anxiety about CoStar.
Yeah.
And CoStar, for those who don't know, if you've done commercial real estate at all, you're familiar with LoopNet. CoStar bought LoopNet some years ago and have really transitioned this business model that you sort of pay per listing to advertise your commercial listing on LoopNet. Dissimilar from, say, you pay LBAR an annual subscription fee for an all-you-can-eat listing service. LoopNet is on more of this sort of pay-as-you-go model that's really quite expensive and is priced out a lot in the commercial field. So CoStar bought HomeSnap, which is another app that we make available to you all. CoStar has bought Homes.com, and I think we're going to continue to see them do acquisitions. There was rumors of them purchasing CoreLogic, which is the largest data provider of residential real estate data. That didn't happen. It fell through.
Yeah.
It was purchased by a different hedge fund
That's right.
that owns Lone Wolf and Cloud CMA and all these other products, right? So what we're seeing is just my mother was a travel agent in the 90s.
Yeah.
In the 80s and the 70s and the 90s.
Yeah.
But her business went away in about 1996. And that was around the time that Expedia came and you saw this massive influx of money into the travel industry. And travel agencies didn't go away. They've just substantially changed since then. And real estate, due to the complexity and the incredible value that the individual realtor brings to the transaction, has been able to stave off that level of disruption for, almost 2 decades.
Yeah, it's true.
More than 2 decades, really, like almost 3 decades. And so the question is, will that continue to exist? Will we continue to stave off that level of disruption? Or is this new recent big tech engagement going to start to fundamentally change things at a more rapid pace? I think it will. But I also believe really strongly that the realtor is far too central to the transaction to be eliminated. It's just going to be changed.
Like redefined. Yeah. And it's interesting, like the whole Expedia journey, the guy that started Expedia is the same guy that started Zillow. Like it's the same dude. And there was an episode of How I Built This podcast that was released, and it was an interview with that guy. And I can't remember his name. But he
Rich Barton or the other one, Spencer.
Yeah, it's one of the two that's being interviewed. And it was an interesting conversation because in the conversation, he was asked, well, the host was saying, well, don't you see yourself as a disruptor? Like you go in and you disrupt the industries. And he said, no, he said, I'm not disrupting. I'm addressing inefficiencies. And I was like, well, that's a very interesting word because addressing inefficiencies does disrupt the status quo. So even though he's saying he's not a disruptor, there is disruption happening. Now, that's where the burden is back on the real estate agent. What kind of value are we giving back? Because I think what you just mentioned in the travel agency as well is that's exactly what happened. They didn't go away. They might have really diminished, and they had to go back and kind of say, well, what is it that what is our value? What is it that we actually bring to the table? And I see a big insurgence of new travel agents because now the Expedia experience has just gotten so, I don't know, just blah, right? You pick your hotel, your flight, and it's done. Whereas now the travel agent comes in and they say, well, what are you looking for? What kind of hotel do you want? What kind of food do you like to eat? And they tailor this package, and the price is actually very reasonable. And it's like, I might even pay a little more to get that experience. And I think you kind of nailed it. I think that's what we're seeing in the real estate industry. We got to redefine our value. Like, what is it that we actually offer to the table? What is it that we bring? What kind of experience do we bring? So that's good. That's really good.
I think that's the word, Adam. It's experiential, right? It's the experience that you bring to the table, the consultancy, the guidance, the sort of stress relief, right? Of not having to fuss with every detail. There's another company out there called Rex, and Rex believes that the consumer is capable of buying a home all by themselves without really any help. Yeah. And what I struggle with is capable of, yes. Yeah. Should they? No. No. Right. And that's, I think, and how we continue to assert the value of the realtor is to me everything. And you're absolutely right. The travel agents are starting to come back. Yeah. And the good news is, I think, as a real estate industry, over the last 5 years, we've really been sort of hammering this point home that we can't just be transaction managers. Yeah. We can't just manage the transaction. There has to be a next piece to that. Yeah. And that's really being a trusted advisor and a consultant. And I think, NAR's That's Who We Are campaign, it's not perfect, but I think that's the point that it's really trying to make is we do a lot more than push paper. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to get the message out on exactly what we do. The consumer does not understand. They don't see this side of it. And so I think that is absolutely right. That's why they're running that initiative. That's the whole reason for the campaign. Because to me, the biggest threat to the industry is not big tech. It's the consumer, right? Because what big tech has been so, what they're right about when Rich Barton talks about finding inefficiencies, what he's talking about is consumers want something, and if the existing real estate infrastructure doesn't give it to them, big tech will. And so I think that's really, we have to make sure that the consumer understands the value of what we do and that we're adjusting the value proposition to meet the consumer demand. We can't just say we're going to keep doing it the way we've always been doing it. Yeah. We can't be resistant to the change. We've got to embrace it and then also reevaluate what it is we do as a value. I mean, and this has happened many times in almost every industry. It's up to us on how we're going to relay that message and how we portray ourselves and what services we offer, and being very clear on those services. I mean, that's the key. We got to know what our value is. But that's really good, Justin. Yeah. So anything else you want to add about the big tech or? I guess the only thing I'll add is keep watching. I think we're not really prepared to talk about this today, but in addition, adjacent to big tech, and it's being sort of led by the big technology engagement is, NAR and a lot of the largest MLSs across the country are in the middle of a number of class action lawsuits, not the least of which was one that we were prepared to enter into a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice and NAR. And last night, the Department of Justice pulled out of that settlement agreement. And I think what that means is that we should be prepared over the next 12 months for something to change dramatically. I don't know what it is yet. Too early. But I think we should, put your suit on, get your armor on, get ready. Something's going to change in the next 12 months. And, as your association, we're going to be doing everything we can to get you ready for it. Yeah, I believe it 100%. And we live in an information age. So I challenge you, watchers and agents out there that are watching this, be in the know.
like reach out to Justin and read the news articles coming down through Inman and Risk Media and other sources. Be aware of what is going on, so that way you know how to respond when these things start coming, because Justin's right, there is change coming. Yeah, we're not prepared to talk about all that, but it is coming. So yeah, that's good. Well, Justin, let's transition now talking more about the market in general, because we're, as real estate agents, we're getting asked, oh, the inventory's so low, it's a seller's market. Oh, it's going to be another crash. It's going to be, can you just kind of give us a snapshot about what the real estate market is actually doing right now and what the conditions look like?
Yeah, so that's a easy question.
Yep.
So, I mean, you all know the market better than I ever could, right? You know that we are in a unprecedented time of constrained supply that is partially impacted by the pandemic, partially
Yeah.
impacted by economic conditions of the moment, but really impacted by the fact that since the crash of 9, 10, 11, um, we basically have stopped building.
Yeah.
Um, in many ways, because in 05, 06, 07, we overbuilt, right? There was too much inventory in the ground. And so I think we've been very slow to come back. And there's a lot of reasons that we've been slow to come back, not the least of which is a lot of the people that built houses transitioned into other industries after the
Mm-hmm.
crash. Um, just people being generally gun shy about not wanting to overbuild and have too many specs in the ground because they have bad memories. And so we just haven't had enough new construction over the last 10 years, 15 years. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In Fayette County, certainly one of those is land use, right? Has been
Yeah.
a huge problem, or not a huge problem, a huge factor.
Yeah.
Um, so, people are quick to point to, oh, interest rates are at historic low. The pandemic has artificially constrained supply. Supply chains are all screwed up. Yeah, all that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike past markets that have been insane, um, there's no rescue on the horizon, right? I don't see a way
Mm.
that we wake up 6 months from now or a year from now and say, oh my God, where'd all this inventory come from?
It's true.
Because you can't create it out of nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like are prices escalating at a crazy kind of almost scary pace? Yes. And in fact, I just pulled the numbers for the southern part of LBAR's jurisdiction. So, like Laurel, Madison, McCreary, Pulaski, Russell, Wayne, Whitley, Knox, like looking at those counties, I mean, the median sales price for the year is up 15%, right? It's actually
Gosh.
over $200,000.
That is crazy.
We've transacted 18% more in real estate this year than last year, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Up almost $50 million of more real estate sold in the southern part of our jurisdiction this year than last year. And believe it or not, we've actually sold almost 25 more units, right? So despite what you hear that we're short, we're short, yeah, we are, but demand is so high that we're actually having a better year this year than we did last year. I think a lot of the anxiety, though, is that that just because the whole MLS is doing better
Mm.
doesn't mean that individuals are, right? Because everybody's in their own business and in their own space. And so I think, it's just a different kind of market. So people who are used to it being a certain way, maybe struggling a little bit more right now, right? Because, and I've heard anecdotally from a lot of agents, I'm not comfortable pushing my client or helping my client go to where they need to get to win this property, right? Whether
Yes.
it's escalation clauses or waiving their appraisal or waiving the inspections, they're just not comfortable, and that's really impacting, at the individual agent level. But as a whole, the
Yeah.
market's as good as it's ever been. It's just you're all working twice or three times as hard for the same amount of business, and I think that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from. And I don't blame y'all for that. That said, inventory is down for sure, but year to date we're up in listings. Right, we've had more new listings this year than last year. We'll see if that continues. Obviously April and May of last year were weird, to
Yeah.
say the least.
Very.
So, we have more listings in May and June this year than we did last year, but that's because nobody was listing their homes,
Yeah.
May and June last year. So
Yeah.
we'll see how the year winds up. But all of the evidence suggests, and all of the prognosticators out there basically say things are going to hold strong for, at least another year and a half.
Yep.
Lawrence Yun, NAR's
Yep.
economic expert, has
Mm-hmm.
kind of predicted a bullish market. I think the big unanswered question, and it depends on who you talk to, is what's going to happen in the foreclosure world. Is the forbearance, the eviction
Yeah. Is
moratoriums,
that
all
going
those
to hit
things?
us?
Yeah, is there something on the
Yeah.
horizon
Yeah.
that's gonna all of a sudden appear? Some folks I talk to say, yeah, there's a huge foreclosure boom coming. Others say, well, yeah, there's a lot of people in forbearance, but all their homes are worth more today than they were a year ago. So they're just going to be able to sell rather than foreclose. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I mean, I think we just have to kind of wait and see how things shake out. That said, I would be shocked if the federal government allowed millions of homes to be foreclosed on. I have a feeling we're going to have a fairly stair-stepped and patient approach to unlocking
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to have a lot of little policies and stuff made to delay and maneuver those waters and not just have them flood the market. But I mean, as on the sell side, on the real estate side, having some REOs and some of those homes into the market. Now, I don't like it for the homeowner, but for the real estate market in general, I think the demand would eat up those homes relatively quickly if they depend on how they pour out. So it's a very interesting market. I can't think. I mean, you mentioned 2008 and 2009. It's not the same. It's just not the same. We had subprime lending going on, some just crazy stuff going on, and market was going crazy. Now we have like low interest rates. We have remodels going on. We have new homes are kind of starting to get built. So it's just a weird market right now, and it's just something to kind of watch. But lumber prices and all that are so high. And that's obviously holding things back as well. So
Yeah, and lumber's starting to come down. I saw
it
that
is.
yesterday, but I think, what we'll have to watch is as lumber comes down, you know, our appliances going up, right? Because we're still sort of superconductors for chips. Is the cost of PVC going to go up? I mean, roof shingles. I mean, there's so much that goes into building a house. Up here in Fayette County, the production builders have all basically stopped all build to suits. They're only doing specs. Um, and in fact,
Yeah.
some of those specs are going to go on the open market, right? They're not going to sell
Yeah.
for a list price. They're actually going to go on the market. So that's going to be kind of an
Yeah.
interesting
Transition
thing to watch.
there. Yeah. Well, because like I was even noticing like paint. There's a makeup inside of paint, and there's a paint shortage because they can't get the manufacturing company to make this chemical that goes in almost every single paint. So it's just bottlenecked. I mean, just every aspect and every industry. I mean, I've been trying to buy a bicycle. Like I'm trying to get a bike, and I can't find one anywhere that I'm looking for. Out of every brand, they're all back ordered. I'm like, goodness, guys.
Right.
So it's all industries. It's all industries.
The one thing I will say to kind of put a bow on that topic, Adam,
Yeah.
is we are seeing a lot of hedge funds start to come in and buy up real estate, residential real estate, particularly in Middle America. We're
Yeah.
seeing that in Kentucky. And so anybody who's kind of worried about like, is the bottom going to fall out?
Mm,
Man, when
yeah.
hedge funds see residential real estate as a really great place to park their money,
Yeah.
it sort of says to me that I don't know, when
Yeah.
the wise guys don't think the bottom's going to fall out, it's I don't know, I might make that bet with them.
Yeah, that's true. You invest where they invest a lot of times, and that's a good indicator. I mean, they see something and they're watching those numbers. They're watching them very closely because they're pouring billions of dollars into it. So that's good, Justin. Justin, tell us a little bit about what LBAR is kind of focusing on right now for 2021 and 2022. What are some of the major topics that are being discussed?
Well, there's a lot. Obviously, we just are transitioning through the Flex MLS conversion, and thank you for all of your patience. I hope it's gone well. I think certainly we have not ironed out all of the bumps in the road, and of course with the news that Somerset Lake Cumberland Board of Realtors is going to be joining with LBAR.
Yeah.
We're going to be working on converting their database to ours over the next few months. So we're excited about that. Beyond that, LBAR is engaged in a number of sort of big picture things for our organization. One of which is looking at a rebrand. For those of you who've been part of LBAR for a long time, it wasn't that many years ago that we were just Fayette County and the counties that touched it. But over the last 7 years, we've grown to, well, we'll be 30 counties by August, and maybe larger than that by the end of the year. Lexington is not really who we are anymore. We're much bigger than that. And so we're
Yeah.
looking at how we want to start communicating that both to our members and to the public about what LBAR is. It's possible that could lead to a name change. It's definitely going to lead to a new brand.
Yeah.
And so we'll look to roll that out hopefully in the early fall. We've launched a new website this year. I'm sure many of you have noticed that. We are also in the process now of evaluating how to better serve the membership and the public through a better search portal on lbar.com. That's been an evolving challenge as we've tried to meet the needs of the consumer adjacent to billions of dollars of investment in things like Zillow and Realtor.com, right? It's sort of hard to compete for that portal space, but we believe we can do something to help maintain, the association and the members as a destination sort of separate from those portals. So we're going to be working on that. We've got a new offer to purchase contract in the works. I was joking with somebody the other day, and we said, if you thought Flex was tricky, rolling out a new offer to purchase contracts, it doesn't seem like it would be as hard, but it's probably going to be about 15 times as hard.
Oh, I believe it.
We haven't updated our offer to purchase contracts substantially in probably 15 years. It's long overdue. There are legal terms in that contract that are no longer relevant anymore. A great example is we use the word default in our contract. No court uses the word default anymore. It's breach. So those are the things that we really just need to tackle. So look for that in the fall. I'm happy to talk about
that's a good one.
Some of the provisions that we're considering if y'all want to. Beyond that, there's really a 100 other things, but those are kind of the big ones that we're kind of cranking.
Yeah, and I think I like where LBAR is going. You guys work to unify and bring in data. So those two things, unifying the real estate agent base in the state of Kentucky is key. We were, at the very beginning of this conversation, we're talking about big tech. If we're divided and we're not data sharing and communicating and sharing this information and helping one another, that's the risk, right? That's the problem. And we got to be able to communicate and have our resources and help our consumers and all that. And you guys are definitely, that's your initiative. And I love the idea of the website. You guys have a phenomenal website for searching and getting the information that the consumer is wanting. And that's the key. So
yeah, the piece about unifying, I think, is really important. And just to kind of circle back to that big tech discussion, we are vulnerable. What is the most let's just take the consumer out of it for a second. Let's talk about the realtor.
Yeah.
What is the biggest inefficiency in our industry of realtors cooperating together? Right?
Yeah.
It's the fact that we have 18 MLSs in the state of Kentucky. We have 12 different offer to purchase contracts. We have multiple different rule sets with MLSs. Some allow coming soon, some don't. Some allow coming soons under these rules, but not these rules. And you know what your consumer doesn't care about? Whether or not a property in Pulaski County is in the SLCR MLS or in the LBAR MLS. They don't care.
That's so true.
But there's so much efficiency to be gained by us coming together, not just in central and southern Kentucky, but I really see a vision for us coming together as a state. It's going to take some time. And Lord knows it's not going to be popular in some constituencies as we move through associations and MLSs across the state. But if we allow CoStar or Zillow to come in and provide a benefit to the realtor member that is easier to put a house on the market than it is to put it in the MLS, we will have given away 100 years of benefit that is unique in America, right? The MLS and Canada does not exist anywhere else in the world.
Yep.
And that's why buying and selling homes in the United States and Canada is such a different experience and positive experience for a consumer. In Europe or South America, every broker has their own listing database. There's no such thing as buyer agency. It's very rare unless the buyer is willing to pay for it out of pocket. We've got to make sure that we build an MLS and an association that protects that for the consumer, because I think it's so important.
Gosh, I can't agree more. I cannot agree more. We got to protect it because it does help everybody. It works. It's a working system. So,
but we protect it by changing and growing, right? We can't, when a lot of times when people hear the word protect, it's a regressive term. It means we're going to stay status quo. So this case, to protect that, we have to move beyond where we are today.
That's absolutely true. Well said. Well said. Justin, thank you so much, man. This is good information. And real quick, Donna said, thank you to all the staff for assisting consistently with that transition to Flex. So she says, thank you. Steve Robinson, principal broker owner, says, "Hey, Justin, thanks so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule to share your insights and knowledge with us today."
Thank you for the kind words, Donna and Steve. Is there anything else we can do? You always know where to get us.
Absolutely. Justin, so appreciate you, man, and your leadership and LBAR in general and what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. If I can ever be of help with you, don't hesitate, man.
I appreciate it. For all of our members out there, I'm Justin at LBAR.com. My cell phone number is written on most walls and brokerages around the state. So if you don't have a way to get a hold of me, just ask somebody and they'll figure it out. We sincerely appreciate all of you being members. For those of you who are not members, come on.
That's right. Come on, let's go. Let's do this.
We're the best association in the state, in my humble opinion, and we'd love to have you.
I love it, Justin. Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everybody.
you. As always, take care. Have a great holiday weekend.
You too.